In every age, human beings have looked up at the stars and asked the same questions. Why is there something rather than nothing? What gives shape to the universe? Why does matter exist at all? These are not just scientific questions. They are questions of meaning, of existence, of God. In July 2012, the world of science made headlines unlike any in recent memory. Physicists at CERN near Geneva announced they had found something extraordinary. They had found the final missing piece of the puzzle that makes our universe possible. Higgs Boson, they named it, but it was destined for another name, more powerful and famous, the God particle. The name itself stirred debate. Did it mean science had discovered God? Or was it simply another attempt to remove God from the story of creation? Or is there anything godly about this particle at all? I'll tell you a thing or two now. This particle is indeed what makes the universe possible, and this sounds divine. But there is a difference between the God particle and the God of a particle. Now, the Higgs boson isn't just another scientific discovery. To appreciate it, think of the universe as a grand stage. Every actor, the planets, the stars, you and me, needs weight, substance, mass to play its role. Without mass, particles would fly through space like ghosts, never forming atoms, never creating the matter that makes our bodies or builds our world. So where does mass come from? For most of history, this was a mystery. Physicists called it the missing piece of the puzzle. The Higgs boson was the clue, evidence of an invisible field that gives mass to everything. Without it, the universe would be an empty void. You see, this indeed makes what we call the universe, and why people thought it was something spiritual. We'll talk of it in religion in no time. First, we should know what exactly this particle is, and why did scientists dedicate half a century and billions of dollars to find it? Imagine walking through a crowded marketplace. Every step you take is slowed down by people brushing past you, conversations drawing you in, friends stopping you to shake hands. Now think of the same walk through an empty street at dawn, no interruptions, no resistance. You glide forward effortlessly. This simple picture gives us a way to imagine one of the greatest mysteries in physics: mass. Why do some particles in the universe move as if they are weighed down, while others pass through space as if nothing touches them? The solution came in the 1960s when several theorists, most famously Peter Higgs, proposed the existence of an invisible field, present everywhere in the universe. This Higgs field would act like the crowd in our marketplace. Some particles would interact strongly with it, gaining heft and substance, while others would pass almost untouched, remaining lightweight or massless. It was a bold idea, but in physics, bold ideas must be proven. To prove it, scientists needed to find not just the field, but the particle that revealed its existence, the Higgs boson. Think of the Higgs field like an ocean covering the entire universe. Fish can't see the water around them, yet every movement they make depends on it. In the same way, the Higgs field surrounds us, unseen, but it defines the very structure of matter. Without it, the particles that make up atoms would never settle into place. No stars, no planets, no life. But how do we know something exists if it's invisible? In physics, we rely on indirect clues. Just as you can watch waves spreading across the surface of a lake to know a stone has been thrown, physicists looked for disturbances in the Higgs field. Those disturbances, fleeting and rare, would appear as Higgs bosons. Catching them, however, required building one of the most ambitious machines humanity has ever constructed, the Large Hadron Collider, or LHC. The LHC is a circular tunnel buried beneath the French-Swiss border, stretching 27 kilometers in circumference. Inside, protons are accelerated close to the speed of light and smashed together with enormous energy. Why? Because when particles collide at such speeds, they momentarily recreate the conditions of the early universe, fractions of a second after the Big Bang. In that moment, particles that cannot usually exist might appear, including, if nature permits, the Higgs boson. It's as if we built a gigantic time machine, not to travel backward, but to recreate the universe as it once was, in miniature, inside a laboratory. To understand why this matters, let's bring it closer to home. Imagine a soccer ball. You know how heavy it feels, how far it travels when kicked. That sense of weight comes from mass. If mass didn't exist, the ball would have no resistance. You'd swing your foot, and instead of rolling forward, the ball would zip off at the speed of light, impossible to control, impossible to play with. Now expand that thought to atoms, the tiny building blocks of everything. If the Higgs field did not give mass to particles, atoms would never hold together. No chemistry, no biology, no Earth. The very concept of things would not exist. The universe would be pure radiation, an endless stream of massless energy. This is why scientists describe the Higgs boson as a cornerstone of the standard model of physics. It explains why matter has structure at all. Detecting it was never simple because the Higgs boson is unstable. It exists for less than a trillionth of a second before decaying into other particles. Detecting it is like spotting a snowflake the instant it touches fire. Scientists had to sift through mountains of data, billions of collisions per second, to find the faintest signatures that pointed to the Higgs. It took decades of work, tens of thousands of scientists, and billions of dollars. But on July 4th, 2012, CERN finally announced the discovery. They had seen it. The Higgs boson was real. For physicists, this was not just a box checked. It was the closing of a half-century-old gap in our understanding of the universe. Without the Higgs, the standard model was incomplete. With it, the story of matter made sense. To make this even clearer, think of resistance in your daily life. When you push a shopping cart, you feel its heaviness. That heaviness is not just the groceries, it's the force your muscles must apply to overcome inertia. When you swim, the water slows your motion, shaping every stroke. When you climb stairs, gravity reminds you of your body's mass with each step. In the microscopic world, the Higgs field does the same thing. It slows down certain particles, makes them heavy, and allows them to clump together into the matter we recognize. Without that invisible resistance, nothing would ever come together. This discovery fits into a much older story: the human search to understand the laws of nature. Isaac Newton explained gravity in the 17th century, showing why apples fall and planets orbit. Albert Einstein in the 20th century revealed that space and time themselves are woven together in a cosmic fabric. And Peter Higgs, along with others, gave us the missing link, the explanation of mass. Each breakthrough doesn't replace the other. Rather, they build upon one another like steps in a ladder climbing toward a deeper view of reality. Think of building with Lego. Each brick is small and simple, but together they can form castles, cars, or cities. Particles are the Lego bricks of the universe, and the Higgs field is what allows the bricks to stay put, to assemble into something greater. Yet, even as the discovery closed one chapter, it opened another. Because while the Higgs explains why particles have mass, it doesn't explain everything. Why does the Higgs field exist at all? Why does it have just the right strength to allow stars and galaxies to form? These questions remain unanswered. So you see, the God particle is not the particle of God in any literal sense, but it does tell us something solemn. The universe is more intricate and finely tuned than we could have imagined. The fact that we exist at all, that mass exists, that matter holds together, depends on this hidden field and its mysterious boson. There are those who say that the God particle proves the universe has no God, that it needs no God. But such words are folly. To think that such an intricate force and design emerged from randomness is most vain. In fact, I believe the so-called God particle reveals new dimensions of divine design and further strengthens the truth that there is an observer, a creator, the God. When the Higgs boson was discovered, the scientific world erupted in celebration. But outside the labs and journals, a different kind of conversation was unfolding. Across newspapers, on the tongues of anchors, and in the words of countless writers, a single name was spoken again and again: the God particle. The title seized hearts at once. To some, it was a marvel that science in the name of God should be uttered in one breath. To others, it was troubling, even profane. How could so small a fragment of matter carry the weight of a divine title? In Christianity, responses varied widely. Some believers saw the Higgs boson as a challenge, as if science was trespassing into sacred ground. They feared the particle was being marketed as a replacement for God, a scientific explanation meant to erase divine creation. Preachers warned their congregations not to be misled by the headlines. Yet many other Christians welcomed the discovery. For them, uncovering the hidden structure of the universe was not a threat to faith, but an affirmation of it. The heavens declare the glory of God, says the book of Psalms. To these believers, the Higgs boson was simply another detail of the divine blueprint, the mechanism through which God gave form to matter. One Catholic physicist described it this way: "The Higgs is not God, but it is one of his brushstrokes." In Judaism, where the study of creation has always held deep spiritual weight, rabbis and scholars reflected on how the discovery aligned with centuries-old teachings. To some Jewish thinkers, the Higgs boson resonated with this mystical language, not replacing it, but echoing it. One rabbi compared the Higgs field to the concept of ayin, the hidden nothingness out of which all creation emerges. "The scientists call it a field," he said. "We call it the breath of God." Others, however, cautioned against forcing too close a parallel. Physics and theology operate in different realms, they argued, and should not be confused. In Hinduism, the discovery found yet another layer of interpretation that I won't explain here. And then, of course, came the responses from within Islam. The phrase God particle drew both fascination and sharp criticism. Many Muslims were quick to point out that the name itself was misleading. The Higgs boson, they argued, is a creation, not the creator. To call it God was to exaggerate science's discovery into something it was never meant to be. But across religions, one point of tension remained: the nickname itself, God particle. Where had it come from? Why was it repeated so insistently? The term originated with physicist Leon Lederman, who co-authored a 1993 book titled The God Particle. If the universe is the answer, what is the question? In truth, Lederman had wanted to call it the goddamn particle, a joke about how frustratingly difficult it was to detect. But the publisher insisted on a more marketable name, and so God Particle was born. What began as a publishing gimmick quickly became a cultural phenomenon. Headlines loved it. The public remembered it, but many scientists despised it, insisting it distorted the meaning of their work. The Higgs boson had nothing to do with God, and yet, once the name was out, it was impossible to take back. For better or worse, the Higgs had been baptized into the world of theology. Now, let's get back to the world of Islam. The nickname God particle is, in truth, an exaggeration, more a product of media hype than scientific precision. Yet the phenomenon it describes is no small matter. It is central to understanding how the universe took shape. I often return to a verse of the Qur'an.
Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and the day, are signs for those of understanding.
The Higgs boson, in its own way, is one of those signs, a hidden detail in the grand story of creation, now revealed to human knowledge, but narrated to us in principle by the Qur'an centuries ago. Modern cosmology tells us that the universe began in an unimaginably hot, dense state, a moment when forces were unified, particles unstable, and reality itself still unformed. As the cosmos cooled, a great transition occurred. Symmetry broke, and the Higgs field spread across space like an unseen ocean. Through its touch, particles gained mass, and structure became possible. Without this silent event, there would be no galaxies, no stars, no planets, and no life. And here, the Qur'an speaks,
Do not those who disbelieve see that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity? Then we split them apart, and we made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe?
You see, the Big Bang was the opening chapter of creation, but the story did not end with that initial flash of energy. What followed was a process of refinement and balance. The raw burst of energy needed something to shape it, something to give it form and stability. This is where the Higgs field enters the picture. It was the Higgs field that clothed the building blocks of matter, with mass turning a formless sea of particles into the ordered cosmos we witness today. The Quran hints at this order when Allah says in Surah Qamar,
Verily all things have we created in proportion and measure.
Every particle, every star, every galaxy follows this law of balance. The Higgs field, in modern scientific terms, is what allows this measure to exist. Without mass, there would be no gravity, and without gravity, no stars or worlds could have been formed. The verse reminds us that nothing was random. Everything was brought into being with precision, as though a divine scale weighed and set the mass of every speck of creation. This divine precision is echoed again in Surah Yunus, verse 61, where Allah says,
And not absent from your Lord is anything, even the weight of a dara, atom, within the earth or within the heaven, or anything smaller than that or greater, but it is in a clear register.
This verse is extraordinary in its depth. In the classical Arabic of the Quraysh, dara could mean a tiny ant, a speck of dust floating in sunlight, or the smallest particle beyond human sight. Early commentators like Ibn Abbas described it as something so small, unseen with the naked eye, and appeared weightless, yet still real. In the light of modern science, many Muslims naturally recognize this as pointing to the atom, the fundamental unit of matter. But the verse does not stop there. It goes further. Allah adds, or anything smaller than that or greater. This phrasing opens the door to realities unknown to the people of the 7th century. It encompasses not just the atom, but also subatomic particles, quarks, neutrinos, and even the elusive Higgs boson itself. The very language of the verse expands to cover the unseen architecture of matter, things that science only began to glimpse in the last century. What makes this connection profound is how the verse explicitly speaks of weight, the property of mass. The Quran is telling us that God is aware not only of the existence of these smallest things, but also of their mass, the very feature that the Higgs field is responsible for. Without mass, atoms could not hold together, stars could not ignite, and life could not emerge. Yet here, in timeless words, The Qur'an links the divine register to even the tiniest measure of weight, a truth science struggled to articulate until recently. Thus, when we place the scientific understanding of the Higgs field beside these verses, a harmony appears. The Big Bang set the stage, the Higgs field gave matter its measure, and the Quran assures us that this measure was never outside divine knowledge. Every atom, every particle, every ripple of creation is preserved in God's record, created with purpose and proportion. In this light, every scientific breakthrough is not a challenge to revelation, but a confirmation of it. Modern physics only uncovers what was already encompassed in God's words. The smallest building blocks of existence, those that carry weight and those so elusive they seem weightless, are all known, measured, and preserved by Allah. Long before the rise of modern physics, Muslim philosophers wrestled with these very questions. Al-Kindi, Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and later Al-Ghazali asked, what is the true nature of matter? Does it exist independently, or is its being continuously dependent on the will of God? Ibn Sina leaned towards an essentialist view, that matter has a kind of necessary reality. But Al-Ghazali, in his Tahafut al-Falasifa, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, dismantled this assumption. He argued that causality itself is not autonomous. Fire does not burn by its own power. Rather, God creates the burning at the moment of contact. The cause has no strength apart from God's will. If we extend this reasoning to today's physics, the Higgs field itself does not give mass by its own independent force. It is not a deity hidden within the equations of nature. It operates only because Allah sustains it at every instant, commanding it to function as the scaffold of creation. The Quran captures this beautifully in Surah Fatir.
Allah holds the heavens and the earth, lest they cease. And if they should cease, no one could hold them after him.
This is the bridge between science and revelation. Science describes the how, the Higgs boson mediating mass, particles interacting with a field to gain substance. But Islam illuminates the why, because Allah decreed a universe in which order, proportion, and life could exist. Without His will, no field, no law of physics, no constant of nature would hold for even a heartbeat. When the Higgs boson was found, physicists measured its mass to be about 125 giga-electronvolts. This number may seem abstract, but it has enormous implications. The precise mass of the Higgs boson is critical because it determines how stable our universe is. If the Higgs were significantly lighter, the Higgs field could have collapsed early in cosmic history. If it were significantly heavier, the field might have destabilized other forces, preventing galaxies and stars from forming. At 125 giga-electronvolts, the Higgs sits in an intriguing position. It suggests that our universe may not be perfectly stable, but only metastable. A stable universe is one where the Higgs field is locked firmly into a minimum energy state, the lowest valley in the energy landscape. Nothing can push it further down. A metastable universe, however, is one where the Higgs field rests in a valley that is not the deepest possible. There exists another deeper valley, separated by an energy barrier. In such a case, the universe could, in principle, tunnel into this deeper state in a process called vacuum decay. If that happened, the Higgs field would suddenly shift to this lower energy configuration, and the laws of physics as we know them would collapse. This possibility is unsettling, but it is based on real calculations. At the measured Higgs mass, combined with the mass of the top quark, another fundamental particle, the equations suggest that the universe sits near the boundary between stability and metastability. It is balanced on a knife's edge, teetering between enduring forever and collapsing into nothingness. If the universe is metastable, then a catastrophic process called vacuum decay is possible. In this scenario, a tiny bubble of true vacuum could appear somewhere in space, where the Higgs field has shifted into a lower energy state. This bubble would expand at nearly the speed of light, rewriting the laws of physics inside it. Atoms, matter, and even the forces themselves would no longer exist in recognizable form. The universe as we know it would be wiped away without warning. To us, it would appear as sudden annihilation. One moment, the universe would exist as it does now. The next, everything would dissolve into something new. The Qur'an echoes this with striking clarity. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah says,
"The day when we will fold the heaven like the folding of a written sheet for the records. As we began the first creation, we will repeat it. That is a promise binding upon us. Indeed, we will do it."
The imagery is powerful. The heavens folded away like parchment, creation undone, only to be remade by the will of Allah. Physics speaks of the universe being annihilated and reconstituted under new laws. The Qur'an speaks of the same, a creation folded and then unfolded again. This is precisely what the Day of Judgment entails. The current universe will vanish, its laws abolished, and God will bring forth another order where time, space, and even life itself obey entirely new rules. The Hadith describe that realm, a day whose length is beyond human reckoning, a world where death no longer exists, and where the conditions of existence are utterly unlike our present universe. Science speculates that if vacuum decay were to occur, the process might take trillions of years to complete. But the Qur'an insists that the hour will arrive in an instant, catching humanity unprepared. It will not creep upon us slowly. It will strike suddenly. But if an external force were to trigger vacuum decay, it would not unfold gradually, but would sweep across existence with unimaginable speed, destroying everything in its path. And Revelation tells us of precisely such an external command, the trumpet of Israfil. At the appointed hour, by the will of Allah, Israfil will blow into the trumpet, and that single blast will begin the end of the present universe. Doomsday shall arrive in no time. So, what does the Higgs field teach us? That the universe is fragile, that what feels permanent is not permanent at all, that existence rests on invisible balances which could shift in an instant. For some, this realization brings fear. For the Qur'an, it is a sign that we are not here by accident, a sign that what sustains us is not blind chance but divine will, a sign that just as the universe had a beginning, it will have an end, and beyond that end lies the true reality. The Qur'an says,
"Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and the day, are signs for those of understanding."
The Higgs Boson is one of those signs. It shows us that reality is far more delicate than we imagined, balanced on principles we cannot control. And in that fragility lies a solemn truth. Nothing in creation is eternal. Only the Creator is.